you John Knox residents. I'm Ron Clement. I'm president of the Resident Council, as I'm sure a lot of you know. And you probably also know that normally we have a resident council meeting for the residents once a month, and we can't do that during the COVID-19 situation. So thanks to a good friend, Lynn Varvero, I want to give her credit, she suggested to me we have at least some presentations once a month by different associates from the campus. And so we're going to have the first one today, and you're going to see it's going to be a little more informal than the usual resident council meeting. I've got Eric Scott here with me, who I wanted to say was the new Director of Operations and Development, but he's been here 8 months, so I guess he's not new anymore. But he's going to speak about what's going on in operations development, and I can interject a question anytime I want, or if I want to wait until he finishes one section of his 4-part talk, he'll turn to me and say, what do you got? So I'm going to turn it over to Eric, and I'm glad you're here.
Thank you very much, Ron. I'd first off like to say I wish we were doing this in person, but we're in the middle of some strange times. Hopefully this presentation will come off okay. And 8 months at John Knox Village is about equivalent to a cup of coffee. So I'm going to run down kind of chronologically what we were doing on the development side so far this year, and Ron will ask questions either during the presentation or at the end, and we can handle them either way. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. The first project we completed this year was the VAL 400, our Village Assisted Living 400 project. Right adjacent to the existing memory care main entrance. This project basically started way back in 2017. There was an elongated process figuring out what we were going to do with the basement, and then eventually it started out as a renovation project, and then we went to trying to save the basement, and then eventually went to existing the entire original building and going back with a building that was basically at grade with the existing memory care building, minus a little bit of a ramp there. This new building was, is 19,920 square feet, and we've got 25 new assisted living units there. Currently, 14 of those are occupied. We started out really strong with occupation, and that was about the time we hit mid-March, and things have slowed considerably since then. So. That's where we're at. Also, I guess with this building, it does include this. It doesn't show up well on this drawing, but there are connections to the existing memory care, Building C and Building H, which were new ramps and nicely appointed connections.
And my wife and I toured that before March, and if you haven't seen it, it's a terrific facility. So when this COVID stuff is over, maybe you can see it. We've got friends who are living there and enjoying it very much.
It looks great. I luckily got here just in time for the groundbreaking event, and the 3 ladies that did the ribbon cutting that way were 3 housekeepers, John Knox Village, all of whom had 40 plus years of service time at the campus. So that was kind of a good story. Okay, and again, Ron, ask questions as you see fit. Off-campus construction, I don't want to focus a ton of time on these, but I will kind of hit some stuff that we've had under construction on property that was previously owned by John Knox Village. The first project, and it doesn't show up on the drawing, but it's down in this area. We've got the new Lee Summit Fire Station number 3. It started at the end of last year and was basically completed, according to my notes, they got their TCO at the end of June, and now that fire station is fully up and running. Between the fire station and Pryor Road, we also sold a piece of property that's being used, and there's a dialysis clinic under construction. I just go down there kind of infrequently, but they poured the slab for the building here about 2 weeks ago. Okay. So those projects are moving along nicely. And that's kind of, I'll come back to the Calvin Community West demolition and start talking about the Villa program, starting with Villas Phase 5. Okay, Villas Phase 5 is this area on the drawing on the east side of Shamrock Lane. Those were started also last year and finished up right at the end of February, early March of this year. We had, I think when I came on the scene in December, 4 of those units had been sold and 3 of them had been moved into. Now, luckily and fortunately, all 5 are sold, and we're just awaiting our last move in. So, very successful addition to the campus, and took out some aged inventory and replaced it with brand new stuff.
We've really been successful with villas, I know that. They tend to get sold before they're finished.
Yeah.
Are the villas pretty much all the same layout, or are there differences? Or?
This set, to my understanding, was the first set of villas where we're using a new floor plan that is 1,371 square feet with a full basement. I understand that the previous phases were a little bit different than that. But the floor plans that we use for Villas Phase 5 are exactly the same floor plan that we're using for Villas Phase 6.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. Again, that great looking, the one good thing about not selling the last one is we had an excellent model to use for an extended period to help get these, and I understand we've got quite a bit of interest in Villas Phase 6. So what we're looking at here is actually the old drawing for what was there previously. All these 5 structures that you see on the drawing have now been demolished, and that happened much earlier in the year. And now we have 3 new duplexes and a single-family home. And the reason we did the single-family home was because the grade drops quite a bit going down the hill here, and we couldn't facilitate a step inside the building. So we're building a single-family home, and then a duplex, and then 2 duplexes that are kind of in the same configuration as the existing buildings. And the reason that is the case is, in an effort to control cost and construction time frame, we spent a lot of time with the civil engineer trying to reuse the existing utilities and infrastructure.
Okay, and I guess folks may know this, but I just thought I'd point out what we're talking about here is on Shamrock Avenue, and if you come a little this way, you run into Pryor Road.
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's right here at the intersection of Shamrock Avenue and Craigmont is the east boundary of that development.
Good.
More exciting news. We basically, as part of the strategic planning process, we're talking about villas 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we've got kind of a long-term plan. It's been a great program for the campus. We're selling the units. They're new, they're big, and also every time we've done this so far, at least in the phases that I've been involved with here recently, we're lowering the density of the occupancy. We'll take out 5 buildings, put back 4. Every time we've gone a little bit backwards in regards of the number of units, but we're increasing the quality.
Okay, it's too bad we can't stack them.
Yeah, no,
okay.
Dan loves the villa program, and it looks like something we're going to be doing for the foreseeable future. I'll give you a little bit of an update on the construction. So we started the construction of Phase 6 in June, I think it was June 22nd, after getting the city permits. At this point, again, all these buildings have been demoed, the site was cleared, and we've actually dug and poured the foundations, and they're actually framing on the structure that's on the furthest west side. And they've started digging the pit for the single-family home. And so we've got another foundation getting ready to dig, and as soon as we get past this kind of uncharacteristically wet July weather, we'll start digging on those again. And they've been moving. When the weather's good, they move ahead pretty quickly. So all that, the Phase 6 villas are scheduled to be done with construction about mid-March, and we're hoping to get as many move-ins and sales as we can before the end of the fiscal year. So
that's great.
Which is kind of the whole thing that's driving the timing for the villa program. Okay, in my next section I wanted to talk about, I've got it entitled as Other Exciting News, and this encompasses kind of the renovation projects that are new construction and renovation projects that our renovations department's doing outside of our normal capital campaigns. So I'll start out with here. Earlier in the year, Calvin Community West was I started talking with Maria Timberlake about demoing that about 4 years ago. It finally happened this spring, so now that building that was becoming kind of an eyesore is out of there. For those of you that drive by, you'll notice that we left the parking lot because we've sold the rest of this property to Summit Homes that's doing a big housing development, and that was part of the agreement to leave that in place so they've got a dry place to work and store equipment. So that was a great thing that had been on the list for a long time and finally got handled this year.
One quick one.
Yep.
And this may be out of your area, but I'm just wondering, is Summit Homes in their building now? I haven't even looked.
I haven't seen any concrete trucks.
Okay.
I talk to them pretty regularly about, well, it's usually because we see some of their truck traffic on our
Okay.
property, and we want to
Okay.
try to keep that to a minimum. But I know they've been back there working on infrastructure. We've got some agreements in that purchase agreement to where we're sharing cost on some of the new work. So we're in touch with them, and I just think the they haven't gotten to the
Yes.
point where they're digging foundations
Yep,
yet.
understand.
Okay. This is kind of a popular topic for most people and maybe a not very popular topic for others, but this year, after many years, we actually have more money in the capital budget for road and street improvements, which is a great thing, and we're also doing some stuff out of our operating budgets to help maintain the existing pavement. So,
If the audience wants to applaud and maybe even stand.
yeah,
that's
we'll leave
fine.
time for that. I'll take a bow. It's not my money; it's all village money. But so I'm just going to kind of run through what we've done so far today and what the future plans are. Starting, I think, in April of this year, as soon as the weather allowed, we did a seal coating of the west parking lot, what it's called, in between FGHC and Lindbergh. That was, I think, completed in April. In the past couple weeks, we've also updated the parking lots, which included crack seal and seal coating on the east and west sides of Memory Care 3, Memory Care 2, some parking at the south side of Building D, and then this portion of Peace Parkway kind of running up the ramp here. Before we lose the weather this year, we're also planning on doing some patching and crack seal in the new Val 400 parking lot.
Okay.
And when I say that some people like this, some people will not, obviously we weren't able to do the entire campus with new paving, but we do have plans, and it looks like with the financial outlook with rolling Meadows and the Courtyard D into the village financials, it looks like we'll have more money in the future to do this type of work, which is, I've gotten called by, I think, everybody in Building A here in the last week because they were not happy with what we do there, and as we always do, we're looking to stretch the money as the best that we can and try to prioritize for the greatest needs. So I told...
And just so folks know, that's O'Brien Road, and this is Moore. So
Yep.
we're talking that section by O'Brien and Moore.
Yep.
Thought I'd point that out.
So let me check my list and make sure. Okay, so we did that. Oh, another big project that we got taken care of that might seem self-serving for the associates, but actually is a great project for the entire campus was, if anybody, for the people that had driven the Ops Service Drive on the north side of the Village Care Center, this was the worst paving on the campus. Right after the 4th of July, in about 3 days, we had an asphalt subcontractor come in here, patch all the big holes, and do a complete mill and overlay of this street, this is about 770 feet long. But we got that work performed. It's completely different.
Good.
This road serves all the associate parking on the west side of VCC, the materials management warehouse, the grounds warehouse, the ops building, and resident functions like the garden area and the hobby hut. So that was a huge thing to get done this year. And the next piece of good news is the next thing up on the item, or out of the capital budget for asphalt repairs, is Rose Court, basically from Northwest Jacob all the way through over to Shamrock.
Yeah.
Which, for people that are familiar with driving the campus, is also some of the worst stuff that we have at this moment. So we've got the money approved through the finance process. We've awarded the subcontract. The reason you have to do that with asphalt really early in the year is, even telling them yesterday that we were going to do the job, they said that the timing would be September, October. And for those of you that watch the weather pretty closely, the last couple of years when it's gotten to November 1st, we're basically been out of paving season because we've had temperatures in the teens or single digits. So that's a good thing. And I'm moving on to abatement work. So every year we do a significant amount of abatement work on the campus. Some of the inventory, was built in the late 60s or early 70s. Some of that stuff needs to be reviewed by an abatement engineer, and then we have the asbestos removed if it's there to be found. So what we've done so far this year is these six structures on the south side of O'Brien.
Okay.
The reason we did those is because, as currently designed, this area, there'll be 2 new parking lots here to service the Meadows campus.
Okay, and that's right across from Meadows.
Right across the street.
Okay.
There'll be the city has already approved a crosswalk across O'Brien, so the shortest path to get to the Meadows Commons front door is actually using this existing pedestrian bridge. So we'll come across there and hopefully have some resident guest parking on this side and maybe some associate parking on this side in a smaller lot. That's a good thing. Also, everybody, and I will end this discussion talking about the Meadows Phase 2, but we've already abated these units on the North Hope Lane cul-de-sac. These units are currently, I think there's 6 out of 12 occupied. After we're in discussions with these residents about relocation now. After these units are vacated, we'll start the abatement process, and we've been planning on some pre-financed budget dollars to handle that expense.
There are 5 people at this point. 2 of them already know they're going to be in Lindbergh.
Yep.
And the other 3 we're just staying in touch with.
Yeah,
in that neighborhood.
Yeah, and I think the last meeting I heard 2 out of those 3 had been located, and we were just waiting on the last one to get that figured out.
Good.
So.
Now, when you say abated, eventually you're tearing them down. Is that what you're referring to?
Abatement is like a review of hazardous materials. Not all the structures that we review on site require abatement.
Okay.
But the abatement gets out of the hazardous materials, and then we perform the demolition after that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. In some cases where the hazardous materials are present, we've got to provide that information to the state before they'll provide a demolition permit.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. This one's not going to be a good visual aid item, but it's an important one. About 3 years ago, we did some renovation projects on the campus that include some renovations in the VCC. That work, because John Knox Village took the approach to self-perform a lot of that work, we ended up with a lot of savings from the bond financing.
Yeah.
Enough, in fact, earlier this year, and after multiple delays due to COVID-19, we have about $97,000 of new furniture that's going to be delivered to the VCC on Monday. I say delivered to the VCC, it's going to be delivered to the campus. We'll probably have to store it until we can make arrangements to get in the building, but also a very good thing. And it's very high quality, long lasting furniture like we've used in some of the new recent developments. Memory Care 1 renovations, also another good thing. It's hard to point out because we're not doing the entire building, but the kitchen area in Memory Care 1 is getting ready to receive new light fixtures, new countertops, have a lot of the corridors painted, and I think we've already installed a new ice machine. So taking funding as available and doing parts as pieces we have money to. And that money actually was also part of the bond savings. Okay. Next big item, valve corridor renovations. This is something that started since I've been here. So we have a lovely new Valve 400 building where the corridors are, the finished materials are about 6 months old at this point. When you walk into the existing village assisted living, you can tell the age difference.
Okay.
So what we're doing, and we started this process about 5 months ago, we've had our campus, the same campus architect that worked on Courtyard Building D and the Meadows project, is doing a design to update these corridors in Val 100, 200, and 300 to match the Val 400 corridors as much as possible.
Great.
So as what typically happens in development and construction projects, we started talking about it and it was the corridors, and we thought it was about $1 million, and then the more we talked about it, the more area we added to the scope. So at this point, we're very close to having the design drawings done. Sometime next week, we're going to put that project out on the street for bid, and we've got 3 pre-qualified, pre-selected bidders to bid on it.
Good.
So one good thing that's happening in the world right now, contractors are aggressive. We're getting a lot of a lot of solicitations about our work, and we're one of the few people that are actually doing new stuff right now. So we're anticipating the contractor pricing to be very aggressive.
Great, yeah.
Good bang for our buck, at least right now. Okay, deep breath, Meadows Phase 2. So, the bigger part of the presentation, just because there's more going on with that, or there's more to talk about with that than what we've got on with the other items. But I think everybody saw Maria did a very nice presentation here about 2 months ago that kind of outlined and showed some of the drawings. But Meadows Phase 2 is basically going to connect to Meadows East with a short corridor, and then the new building starts out and there's an elbow, and it basically runs to about the south end of this parking lot. And then there's also a little stub out here into the courtyard. So again, I felt like it was necessary to point out these development projects, the pre-construction development process lasts about as long as the actual construction. And the actual construction on this building is anticipated to be 15 to 17 months. So
Okay.
we've been talking about a long time, and actually this next phase of the Meadows was in the original development plan that started way back in 2014. But for obvious reasons, this was a pretty big chunk to take on when we did that 3 years ago. So this new building, we've been talking about it. It's in the design process, and so I kind of made some notes on where we're at right now.
So that building, I guess, will run almost completely across what is now the Hope Lane cottages, but not quite.
It will cover up the area covered by parts and pieces of these 5 structures. This one probably could have made it without being torn down, but it's one of our older buildings.
Yes, I know it.
So that's the plan. So that's the plan there. So I was going to run down. So the development process there's a lot going on kind of behind the scenes. Since having our first meeting in December, we've been talking with the architect that is the same architect that we used on Meadows Phase 1 and Courtyard Building D. Excuse me, I'm going to grab a drink of water real quick.
Go right ahead. Yep.
Try to get the water off my face. So, as of right now, we're under contract with Greystone, our development partner. We're also under contract with the architect and a local civil engineer, and the local civil engineer is a change from last phase, which I think is a smart idea. We get a little bit better service with the closer proximity.
Okay.
And the architect is under contract with the same structural engineer and mechanical, electrical, plumbing engineer that we used on Phase 1. So basically, we've reassembled most of the team to try to take advantage of the past knowledge for the things that went well on Meadows Phase 1 and also the things that didn't go that well on Meadows Phase 1. So I think it's a really solid approach. Also, for the residents that were around in the summer of 2017, you know that we spent about 6 months hydraulically hammering limestone out of this site.
Yes.
So
yes.
This go around, we've tried to be a little bit more cautious with the elevation of the building. And contrary to what we did with the parking garage in Meadows West, we're basically bringing that up a story. So the new first floor of the new building will match the existing first floor of Meadows East.
Okay.
And I realize that's kind of a hard concept to think about without looking at the building. The first floor of the new building will still be a parking garage, but it will be at the same elevation. And the way these grades happen, there's actually a retaining wall right here that will come out, the buildings will connect, and then the building extends to the north. The slope of the ground comes up as you go to the north, so it'll end up being a very similar configuration to Meadows West, where you have exterior skin on part of the building and then part of the parking garage is actually underground.
Okay, and I guess, will there be, like, between the east and the new building, a corridor, or?
There'll be three floors of corridors to connect the buildings. So Meadows East is only 3 stories tall. Every floor will connect to the new building, and the new building will actually be 2 stories taller.
Okay, so 4 living stories and then the parking at the bottom.
Correct.
Okay.
Other things that are a little bit different, and this building, kind of for base knowledge, Meadows West is the 2nd largest building on the campus square footage wise. The only larger building is the Village Care Center. The new building, Meadows 2, is about 15% bigger than Meadows West.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
for reasons of scale there.
Now, will the rooms, or I'm sorry, the apartments, will they all be 2-bedroom and very much like the 2-bedroom ones in Meadows 1?
Very close. We've
Okay.
reused some of those floor plans. There will be 12 one-bedroom units.
Oh, okay.
But we have 40 two-bedroom units, so we might have a much higher percentage of 2 bedrooms versus 1 bedrooms.
Okay. Good.
And that's all based on the demographic and sales
Sure.
info from the first project. Check my notes. So I talked about the development process. It starts with our development partner doing demographic studies, determining the need, and making sure that the population and incomes will support a project like this. All that information came back very positive. In March, we went to the board and got money to start the first 3 months of the project. We've managed, after being 3 months in, to only be at about 80% of that budget, which is good news. In the board meeting next week, we're going to talk about what it looks like going forward up until the time we put the project out to bid in the spring of 2021.
Good. I have one question from my wife, and so this is the most important one.
Okay.
She is concerned about the mature trees over in Hope Lane, and we know you have to take some of them down to put the building up, and I suppose you got to take some down to have parking. Will you be able to save a lot of trees?
We will save as many trees as we can possibly save.
Okay, okay.
Everybody thinks the construction guys and development guys like to tear down trees. We do not. It's not good for the environment, and it's also very costly. So this building, if you took this building and kind of turned it a little bit, it would give you a pretty good picture of how that's going to fit into the Hope Lane. One thing that's going to happen that we think, based on requirements from the city, is that we're going to have a fire lane along the entire east elevation of the building. What that probably means is Hope Lane, that was previously connected, now gets reconnected as part of the project. So on top of that, we're looking at doing some angled parking. We realized Meadows Phase 1 was short on parking. We're trying to address that, and then some on Meadows 2 to get us back up to where we should be.
Good.
So,
good.
I'll quickly go through. I think we're getting close on time. So 52 apartment units, starting at the same finished floor elevation as Meadows East. The exterior construction of the new building will, of course, match the existing building. Interior finishes levels will be about the same as the existing Phase 1. We're changing up what we're doing on the number of color palettes and the upgrade options. And we are going to address, on top of the covered parking in the building, we are also going to address additional surface parking.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, I think that kind of gets it.
I appreciate it very much. I have learned a lot today. This has really been thorough, and I had other questions, but before I got a chance to ask them, he covered them. So it was very thorough, and I appreciate it very much. And we're gonna tune off here in just a moment. Next month, we are going to have Mary Beth Roberts, Director of Sales, Marketing, and Communication, and I'm sure you will find her interesting also. Thank you.
Thank you very much.